guys, Stu here. Today's review is for another one of those sweet old DVD releases, hot diggity potatoes. We have a lot of those at the moment. But this week again, the lovely folks over on at Curzon Artificial Eyes sent me a copy of Through the Wall to check out for you guys. So let's talk about that shit. So Through the Wall is an Israeli romantic comedy about a woman who is getting married and then her fiance is like, nope, we're not doing this. But instead of cancelling the plan, she decides to actually go through the wedding still without a groom in the hopes that God will find her a groom and give her someone to marry instead of her fiance by the time the wedding comes around. You guys know I love me a good rom-com. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me, but then at the same time, there are some rom-coms which I genuinely think are really, really great films. So I was very excited to see this one just because I've never watched a rom-com from Israel. And the rom-coms that I do check out tend to be Hollywood ones or British ones, so I'm keen to sort of branch out and see what other countries are doing with the genre, which is why this one kind of excited me. It's directed by Rama Bernstein, who did a film before called Fill the Void, which I didn't see, but did actually get a bit of critical acclaim, so I'm interested to check that one out, but I've never seen any of her work before. And I gotta say, this one is actually a really solid little rom-com. I mean, it's not amazing, it's not great, and there are things which held it back for me, but I did have a good time with it. And part of the reason I think I enjoyed myself so much was the really great central performance from Noah Kula, who plays our lead character, Michal. As far as I'm aware, this is her first time acting in a big feature film. I've never seen her in anything before, at least. And she does do a really solid job carrying this film. It's a sort of character which does have a tendency to come off as a little bit annoying, and in that sense, there's a risk that you might end up really not liking the character. But Noah Kula, for the most part, managed to keep me on side with her. I enjoyed watching her for every scene. She does a really solid job throughout of showing the dramatic side of things and the pressures that are on her character, as she's coming from the Orthodox community where kind of marriage is essential there. That side of things I think she does really well, but she's also quite funny and quite charming in that sense, so in all, in a rom-com kind of character, she does a really good job there. But the direction from Rama Bernstein as well is pretty solid overall there. I mean, it's not particularly pushing any boundaries out or doing anything groundbreaking in terms of direction there. It does do a solid job with the rom-com genre, and it does do a good job to kind of play with conventions of that genre in an interesting way, so that side of things was really good. Particularly the fact that I think it could have gone many different directions that it didn't decide to go, and I always appreciate seeing that in films. But I think the main thing that she did do really well here is the tone overall of the film, because it's a film which does have a lot of dramatic moments, but I wouldn't really say it is a drama, and I like the light-hearted way that the director approaches this one, because it's a sort of film where, and I'm not entirely sure if this is a direct result of the cultural differences between me and the Israeli Hasidic community, but it does sort of run the risk of being a little bit frustrating, at least in the sense of the genre and the traditions of the genre in cinema. And I think it does do a good job to come at it from a light-hearted angle, because it means that some of the things where you might be going, this is a little bit frustrating and annoying me about certain things, aren't quite as prominent as they would be. For instance, the very fact that she does place so much emphasis on getting married and being a wife to someone else could come off as a little bit problematic if this film was entirely serious and went for just a complete dramatic approach. But there is a certain playfulness to the direction it lends, an interesting angle on that, and means that I think, on the whole, it can kind of play with itself and kind of laugh at itself in a little bit. I do, however, think that there's a lot more that could have been done, particularly with the story that we've got here, to make it just a little bit more interesting, or just kind of make it feel like there's a little bit more to say here from a direction standpoint. I think one of the main things there, and one of the problems that arose from the direction in this film, is the fact that it's very centered on our lead character of Michal, which does work, and I can therefore see why they've done certain decisions the way that they did. But there's sort of, the film goes through, and all of the sort of romantic characters, the love interests, the male characters in the film that are associated with Michal, sort of just seem to pop in and then are there for a short amount of time and never really get fully fleshed out. So I'm never really behind any of her relationships with the love interests in this film. So when you get to the end of the film, I'm not really behind it from a kind of romantic side of things, as I think it wants you to be, and as I think you need to be for the style and the genre of the film it's going for. Which I think is also a little bit of a problem with the pacing of this film. This film does feel very quick, and you do sort of go through it at a very steady pace. And maybe because they're trying to put so many characters into that short space of time, but it does feel like we never get a real moment to kind of pause and calm down and just have a look at some central relationships. It just sort of rattle through it in the hopes of getting to the end point, which I think definitely undermines the end point. I can't help but feel like the end point of this film was somewhat anticlimactic, at least in the way that it looked like this film was going. Because I was quite impressed at how it managed to seem like it was going down quite a conventional route, and then seemingly U-turn on that and go a different way throughout. There are moments like that in the film, which actually I really did admire, and I like the way that they went with that. But then you get to the final end point of the film, I just feel like with a film which has done so many U-turns on conventions, it could have done a little bit more there. And there is a way that I personally think this film could have ended, which might have made it a little bit better and just, I don't know, maybe worked a little bit more for me in the kind of grand scheme of the film. But that's not to say that the way that the film did end wasn't effective. I think it did what it needed to do, and, you know, that's fine. But I just think there could have been a little bit more meat to it, just to give it a little bit of a longer lasting impression, other than just me coming out of the film and going, yeah, well, that was a film that happened. Cool. I'll probably never watch that again. So I think at the end of the day, this film was a very solid little romantic comedy. It definitely entertained me and kept me hooked throughout, and I was behind all the characters. I enjoyed what I was seeing. I particularly love the way the dialogue is written. That side of things was really great. But it's when you get to sort of the actual meat of the plot and making characters have relationships which feel meaningful and feel like they have a purpose in the film where it gets a little bit flaky for me. I don't know, I did really enjoy myself with the film. I can't stand here and say it was really great. So I'm going to go ahead and give Through the Wall a very high 3 stars, almost a low 4 stars. I think in the future, on future watches, there's a chance it may be bumped up to a low 4 stars, but at the moment, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3. It comes out over here in the UK on DVD on the 20th of February, courtesy of the wonderful folks over at Curzon Artificial Eye. So definitely check it out. If you're a fan of romantic comedies and just want to see a different, interesting approach from a different country on the genre, I think you'll really have a good time, and I definitely think you should check it out for that reason. But do let me know in the comments below if you're excited to check it out, or if you've already seen the film. Whatever you thought about it, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know. And as usual, if you like this review and want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. But until next time, stay beautiful, mother truckers.